My name is Juliana Nykolaiszyn with the Oklahoma State University Library. Today is October 20th, 2007, and I'm at the ConocoPhillips OSU Alumni Center interviewing Jo Ann Pegues. This interview is being conducted as part of O State Stories, an oral history project of the OSU Library. Thank you for joining us today.
You're very welcome.
Well, let's learn a little bit about you. If you could tell us where you're from, where you grew up.
I grew up mostly in Payne County, Oklahoma, on a farm not too far from here. The address is Perkins, Oklahoma. I was my mother's only child, so I grew up pretty much as an only child. I have an older sister, and I had a brother that were much older than I. And we farmed. My dad had a large farm down on Wild Horse Creek, which is on Highway 33, and between Perkins and Coyle. We grew alfalfa, wheat, corn, those kinds of crops. And my dad was honored for his crops by OSU when he was, actively farming. So that was a nice tribute for him. And actually, his picture hung in the bank down at Payne County Bank for years with one of his fields of cotton. So I grew up doing 4-H club. That was the activity that I was involved in. My mother was a school teacher, and I usually the elementary schools that I attended, I went to school with her. She taught in one-room schoolhouses when I was a little girl, and when I graduated from the 8th grade, then I came to school here in Stillwater.
Okay.
So that's pretty much my childhood. There weren't a lot of kids. When you live on a farm, you don't have a lot of playmates because there's not that many people around that have kids.
Did you help out on the farm?
Oh yeah, I did everything. We baled hay. I rode the hay baler and stacked hay, and we combined wheat. I rode the combine and learned to drive the truck. Of course, when you live on a farm, farm kids always drove vehicles earlier than other kids, than city kids did. So I did a little bit of everything because my dad had no sons around, so it was me. Used to ride the back of the drill when we planted wheat. And then I helped my mother freeze foods from the garden. We put up all of our own food. We had chickens and hogs and cattle, and we always had our own meat. So we pretty much grew everything. I learned to do all of those preserving foods as a child.
Well, why did you decide to attend OAMC? Was it just because it was so close, or?
Yeah, I think so. My mother and sister both had gone to Langston University, and I just decided I wanted to do something different. So I chose to go to Oklahoma A&M College. And at the time, well, I guess you'll ask me about that later, but at the time I came, there were very few black students here. So we were part of that first group that helped to integrate OSU, I guess.
What was your major?
I went into the School of Home Economics because after being in 4-H club, I did a lot of things that were home ec related. I sewed, and I used to do food demonstrations. And my home demonstration agent was very, I guess, helped me to decide that that was an area that I liked, because she would always find opportunities for me to either demonstrate my cooking skills. I made rolls. That was my specialty, making yeast rolls. And I actually won a trip to Washington, D.C. at 4-H Club for that kind of activity, the demonstrations that I did. My home ec teacher in high school also influenced me because we did a lot of sewing and we did a lot of cooking. So I knew I liked to do those things. My mother was a school teacher, and my sister majored in elementary education and was a school teacher for a while. And I didn't think I wanted to be a teacher, but I wanted to do something in that field. So when I came here, I had a very great advisor who talked to me about, had you ever thought about dietetics? I had no clue. I didn't know any dietitians. I didn't know anything about the field of dietetics. So once I got here, that was the route I decided to take.
Let's talk a little bit about campus at that time. You mentioned that you were one of the first groups to enroll to help integrate OAMC OSU. What was that like for you? Was there, we talked to other alumni and they say, well, we didn't really notice race relations at that time. It really wasn't that big of a deal.
Yeah, that's because they weren't black.
Exactly. So
it's never a big deal for the person that's not on the other side of the coin.
So what was it like for you? Was it hard? Was it difficult breaking that barrier?
I think that I had some survival skills because when we moved to the farm in Payne County, we initially lived in Logan County. And when I was real young, we moved to Payne County. We were the only black family in that area of the county. And it was interesting because farmers are people that help each other. So if you're harvesting grain, then all of the farmers pitch in and help other farmers to complete their grain crops. Well, my dad was no different. I mean, he just got into the mix and he would work with them. And I never will forget, when we fixed dinner, my mother fixed dinner, everybody sat down and ate at our table. When my dad went to these other farmers' homes, they wanted to put him at a separate table. And that was like, you come to my house, you're going to eat at my table. So what's the problem here? So I was aware of the kinds of discrimination that went on. So having followed my dad's lead, he was open with everybody. And he happened to be a very good farmer, and he was a very smart man, although he didn't have a formal education. For example, he would take the grain to Perkins, to the granary, and when you get on the scales, you weigh the truck empty, and then you weigh it full, and then you weigh it empty. He would have figured out in his head how much grain he had on there before the man could do it on the adding machine. I mean, he was just that smart. So there was no sense that I was any less important or less skilled than anybody else. I learned those skills. So when we came here, I felt that, I didn't have a problem relating to other people. They might have a problem relating to me. There were some students, because integration took place in 55, I think. And initially, I would have gone to school in Perkins. I had been riding the school bus all those years to Stillwater from where we lived. That was 25 miles, and Perkins was just right down the road. So the year that the schools were integrated, I should really have gone to Perkins, but I was a senior, and I did not want to go to a new school. So I got permission, and I came to Stillwater and finished with my class. I think I went to Perkins for a week. That first week I went to school, and I thought, I don't think I want to do this. I think I want to go and be with my class. So when I came to OSU, there were, I believe, about 18 black students. And I lived in Murray Hall. And it was just, for me, it was interesting to see why we were in school versus why the white girls were in school. Most of the white girls came to school to get a man. We came to school to get an education, because I was always taught you need to get an education so that you can take care of yourself. You don't have to depend on anyone. And that was my goal. I need to get this degree. So the conversations, there was not a lot in common when you thought about why we were all there, because they were the party animals and the sororities and all that. We didn't have any sororities. I mean, this was a new concept, we were all here. I felt very fortunate because my advisor, her name was Mary Leidig, in the School of Home Economics, and she liked me and just sort of held my hand throughout the 4 years that I was here. She always gave me good advice, and she would sit and talk to me and tell me things. And so I just felt like she was in my corner and I was on the right track. Now, you talk to my husband, on the other hand, he had some very different experiences, and a lot of the other kids did because it was like a lot of the teachers. Now, the grading system was hard. I made straight A's in high school. I didn't know what it was to get a B or a C, and to get a D, and I ended up with D's and C's, and I'm like, this is not good. But I attributed it to I was graded differently than the other people in the class. But you just had to keep going. You couldn't let that stop you, and it was designed to discourage us, I'm sure. And a lot of kids did flunk out. They just decided, no, I don't have to put up with this.
How did they room you at Murray? Did they mix?
I had a black roommate.
Did anybody have a white roommate?
I don't think so. Now that I think about it, I don't believe so. I think everybody had a black roommate, or either they were in a room by themselves.
At that time, was there meal service in Murray Hall?
The meal service, yes, it was wonderful. And that's what I'm appalled by now, because they don't have the meal service. If you look at what's happening in the world, in the country, everybody's obese, people are eating too much, eating all the wrong things. And all you see is fast foods on campus. And I'm like, not only should these students get an education, but they should be taught something about health. We ought to be trying to help them with their health as well as their education. My grandson is here now. And there is no food service other than fast foods that he can eat. And I just have a real problem with that. But we had great food. We had meals. We had choices. There was usually a choice of 2 meats, and you had the choice of vegetables. They had wonderful desserts and salads, and it was like going to a restaurant every day. But food service was excellent. Not that I ended up being part of it, but I thought it was great.
Did you not partake of it all the time?
Oh, yeah, I always did. Okay. Becoming a dietitian, I eventually was hired as a dietitian here. I was the first black to be hired as a dietitian on staff. So, and I knew all the people in food service, all the dietitians. I worked at Bennett Hall. Then I did my dietetic internship here. So,
nice.
I was partial to the food service operation.
So, well, that's good. I won't tell you what I eat normally, because you'll frown upon me. Tell me about laundry. I know it sounds like an odd question, but how did you do your laundry?
How did I do my laundry? Sometimes I went home, and my mother did it, but I think we had, I'm thinking that we had laundromats in the dorm. I don't remember. That was a long time ago. I wasn't one to do a lot of laundry. Even when I was at home, well, I would wash and Mother would. I didn't iron. That's what it was. Mother would iron my clothes. Maybe we went to the laundromat. That escapes me. I can't remember what we did.
I only asked because some students have sent it home with a courier, and then they would send it back. So I was just curious. We're trying to get different perspectives. So
I know my mother ironed my clothes, so maybe she washed them. I don't remember.
Okay.
I just don't remember about
Fair
laundry. That was one of those things that.
Now, were there a lot of social activities going on around campus that you participated in?
There were some. The student union was the place to go. On the weekends, the kids would go and dance in the student union. I remember the 4th floor, there was a place where we would go and dance. And that's where you got to socialize and meet your friends. A lot of the kids flunked out because they spent too much time in the student union. Instead of going to class, they were in the student union. But I only went there like on weekends. Once I had a boyfriend, my husband, we would go to, they had lots of different dances that you could go to, functions like that. So that was always fun. And they had they would have different kinds of concerts. I remember some of the popular musical artists would come to the school for concerts.
Do you remember the kinds of music you listened to, the popular artists that you enjoyed?
Oh, that's when bands like the Platters and what's it, Bats Domino, I guess Ray Charles. I'm trying to think. Many of those rhythm and blues songs, some of the really good songs, you knew all the words, and they were good dancing songs as opposed to rap. So the music was good, yeah, it was good music.
Now, your husband, he went to OSU?
He had a track scholarship.
Tell us how you met.
Well, my roommate was from Tulsa, and he came the next year. I was here in '56, and he came in '57. And I just saw him. We were in the student union. I asked my roommate, I said, Robbie, who is that guy? And so she said, oh, that's Sam Pegues. You know, he was my classmate. And we went to school together, I guess she said. So she introduced us, you know, and that's how we met. Just kind of started talking. He was on track scholarship, so he didn't have a lot of time. And when I talk about different experiences, his experience was very different from mine because his older brother had gone to the University of Pittsburgh, and he was a real smart guy. He had a scholarship and majored in engineering. So when Sam came here, he didn't know what he wanted to major in. I guess he was talking about his brother, so he was in the School of Engineering. And his advisor enrolled him in 21 hours as a freshman. So by midterm, he was like flunking every course because he was on a track scholarship and he had to go to track practice and he had to work and then try to keep up with 21 hours. And at some point before the end of the semester, he was getting on the elevator and or he was getting off the elevator. His advisor was getting on, and the advisor looked at him and said, "Oh, you still here?" So that was a wake-up call for him. And he said he remembers he called his mother and he just cried like a baby over the phone, telling her that he had all F's and this just wasn't working. So she told him he could come home. He said, "I'm gonna give it one more try." So he went back in the second semester. He had like 15 hours, a normal person, 15 hours, and it was from then on. He did fine, but that was his wake up call. And I think a lot of the kids had those kinds of experiences. The advisors either gave them too many hours or put them in all these hard courses that they knew they would flunk out, so they wouldn't succeed. And that's why I say I was really lucky because I had a really good advisor who she liked me and she just really wanted me to succeed. But I think there was a rarity at that time. Not everybody wanted us here and treated us, and I think you felt it more in the grades that you got and the way you were treated in the classroom, more so than the students. I mean, the students were all doing their own thing or what have you. I mean, there were students who spent some time with us, but for the most part, we just had to do things with each other.
Did you ever feel unsafe on campus?
No. It was a safe environment, and it was much more structured then. Mm-hmm. They sent. I remember when I got my packet, they sent dress code. There was a dress code. You had to wear certain kinds of bobby socks, and you just kind of knew what to pack and what was expected. And then you had certain hours. Your house parent, there was somebody checking the rooms at night to make sure everybody was there. You had to sign out for the weekend, so it was a very safe environment. I mean, I never had any fear like that.
Touch upon for me the support system you found with all the Black students.
Well, I think we just all just kind of stuck together. If somebody needed help, you just helped each other out. Somebody needed food, somebody needed money. People just sort of helped each other out because a lot of kids wouldn't have enough money to last the whole month or whatever. kind of studied together. If you had a class with somebody, you may not be in a class with anybody else black. You know, it might be just you. And I think that was part of probably the hardest part because it's always good to study with somebody. And the white students were reluctant to spend a lot of time. You know, they didn't want to help you, so you didn't ask. You just did your best.
Well, when y'all got together, what types of activities did you do for fun outside of dancing? Did you do anything else?
No, there was no time to do much else. You know, you might go eat together in the dorm,
Uh-huh.
but I'll walk downtown, I'll go shopping. I know my roommate and I, you know, I think there was, going back to the laundry question, I think there was a laundromat down here on, what is that street? Knobloch? That's just this one. Washington. Maybe it's Washington. Where all the little shops are, the pizza place and all of that. Washington. We would, on Saturday morning, there was a donut shop down there. And we would walk to the donut shop. And maybe that's when we did our laundry. But between the two of us, we'd eat a dozen donuts. And I didn't gain any weight then, but I couldn't do that now. I still remember that. And those donuts would be so good. But I think maybe we did laundry down there.
Were you involved in any on-campus activities or organizations?
We went to, there was the Baptist Student Union. I used to go there on occasion. I'm trying to think what else. Can't think of anything else that we did.
Did you hang out in the library much? Did you spend much time there? What were your thoughts of the library?
You went there to study. I mean, that's what the library was for. And we took a library science class so you could learn to use the library. That was a freshman requirement. So, but I spent a lot of time in the library. You wanted peace of quiet, that's where you went to study.
Did you attend many sporting events while you were here in school?
Yeah, we would go to the football games, the basketball games, and some wrestling matches.
What was the atmosphere like?
It was always exciting. You know, the games were fun. We did enjoy those. That was an outlet. I mean, it was something to do that everybody could go to. The basketball games were particularly fun. They did have more black players because they recruited the black students, you know, of course, for the sports. So we had, you know, there were some people out there that you were looking forward to seeing. Both, football, basketball. My husband had a track scholarship. And then they had a black wrestler, a couple of black wrestlers. So that was pretty diverse when they started integrating and recruiting black students. They had some struggles. You should be interviewing my husband because he has some real stories to tell.
You'll need to talk him into it for us.
Yeah, he probably will. He and Orlando Hazley, his picture's hanging up there. The track star. I don't know. He's in that room, the alumni room. He was here when we came, and Orlando was a very fast runner. So my husband was a high jumper. That's how he was recruited for the track team. But when they did the Texas relays in particular, they couldn't eat with the team. And there was a man named Nykolaiszyn who was my husband's mentor. He followed the track team. He was the son-in-law of President Bennett, he was president when we first came here, and then he was killed in an air crash. But Nykolaiszyn was married to his daughter, and he liked Sam, and he would, because of him, Sam was able to manage on the track team. The first time they went to the Texas relays, they stopped at a restaurant on the way back. You know, mind you, these guys have gone out here and run and jumped and done all of that hard work, and then you're coming home and you go to a restaurant and you're told, well, you can't eat in here with the team. So um, he was so upset, he just started walking. He was walking back to Stillwater. And at that point, Mac told the coach after that incident, he said, if one person can't eat, nobody's eating.
Wow.
So there were people here who, who were really good-hearted and they knew what was right, and they didn't allow others to mistreat them. But like I said, he could tell you some stories. I never had that kind of experience. I didn't. But yeah, we went to the sporting events. I mean, that was always an outlet because that was always fun to see the guys that we knew that were out there.
Is there a faculty member or class that you remember that played a big part in your life here at OSU?
Well, probably Miss Leidig. She's the one. She's the main one in terms of, because she was one of my teachers as well as my advisor. There were other people that I didn't have as instructors. Dr. Winterfeld, Leah Ebro came later, were always friends. I never had classes under them, but other than that, I don't remember any particular instructors that stood out.
Well, it's a Homecoming 2007.
Right.
Tell me about Homecoming back then. Was it as big of a deal back then?
I don't think so. We didn't really celebrate homecoming until later years. And we started kind of once they set up the Black Alumni Association and the golf tournament. We started coming back for that. So we encouraged people who were here when we were here to come because then we get to see them. So it is a big deal for us now because it's the only time we get to see a lot of the people we went to school with. And many of them are coming back. Some of them we're still working on. They had such bad experiences they don't ever want to set foot on Oklahoma State again. But we're trying to encourage people that this is, it's good. We need to come back and we need to celebrate it and we need to let the black students know that, yeah, this is a good place and we got a good education. And I try to encourage people to come here and go to school. Like, this is a good school. I got a really good education. So, and because of it, I've been able to do the things that I have done in life. So homecoming is for us a big thing. We brought my grandson is here now. He's a sophomore. He was a transfer student. And he's all into it. He just thinks this is the greatest that he can go to the school where his grandmother and grandfather went. And his dad, my youngest son, and his wife and two little ones came down for homecoming. So they walked around with Miles this morning. And it's like a big family. And just walking in the street last night with all the people, I just don't remember it being like that. I've never seen that many people in the street before. So it is like a big family because, at some schools you couldn't be out like that without somebody getting in a fight or something happening. We didn't see anything like that. It was just all good.
After graduation, what did you go on to do?
What did I do? I did my dietetic internship here. And then my husband had come back. He graduated and then took a job in Kansas City where again he faced a lot of discrimination, so he decided to come back and get a teaching certificate. So while he was working on his teaching certification, I was hired as a dietitian here and worked in Bennett Hall. And that was fun because all the people that in the food service, all the dietitians and all the management were very supportive. So that was a good environment. When we left here, my husband interviewed with Denver Public Schools, and he accepted a position in Denver. So we moved to Denver, Colorado, and I started out my first job in Denver was with the Children's Asthma Research Institute and Hospital. It was a home that treated asthmatic children from all over the world. And that was an interesting job. It was a Jewish hospital, so I had to learn all the Jewish dietary laws, which was very different. And I was the manager of the food service. And that was a fun job. I stayed there for several years, from 64. We went to Denver in 64.
Wow.
And then I worked in a research and demonstration project for the administration on aging when they were doing the research for the Older Americans Act nutrition programs. I worked in one of the pilot projects. I taught, had a part-time job teaching food service, people in food service to get their certification in food service through Emily Griffith Opportunity School. I did that. And I thought I'd never want to teach, so I thought I can do this. But it was teaching adults, it wasn't teaching kids. And I was so nervous when I first started doing that. It was funny because it was a 3-hour session. And I had all my notes and everything. And by the first hour, I was out of notes. And I thought, oh dear, what do I do now? But I soon learned, that you have to ask questions. You have to get the students involved. And now I do a lot of adult education stuff. But after that, a friend of mine who worked for the Administration on Aging said that there was a vacancy in the federal system. So I applied for that job with the Administration on Aging and went to work April 1st, 1974. At that time, it was it was NHHS. It was Health, Education, and Welfare, I guess, and then the name changed to Health and Human Services. So I made a 30-year career of working for the Administration on Aging, doing mostly community nutrition work. I worked with state, and it was more administrative than it wasn't like working in the hospital or anything. I worked with state agencies, with tribal organizations. Started out working with 6 states, and by the end of my career, I had 14 states, including Hawaii and Alaska. So I had a huge territory. But it was fun. I always enjoyed all of the work that I've done, all of the experiences. And I attribute it back to having been here, getting really a good foundation, because my Food Nutrition Institution Administration, that base, I could do any of those jobs.
When you worked in Bennett Hall, did you advise students?
No, it was mostly food service. We were planning the meals and serving the meals.
Well, what is it about Oklahoma State that sparks such loyalty in students and alumni?
Well, I think, number one, if you had a good experience here, and if as a result of being here you were able to go out and get a job and be productive, then you can see the advantages of having been here. You want others to be here, and you just want to be supportive of everything that goes on here. You want to be a part of something that's good.
Now, you and your husband have endowed a scholarship.
Right.
Why is that important for you to give back?
Well, I think so often people don't give in a way that can help others, and because the field of nutrition is dominated by basically white women. If you look at the American Dietetic Association, we have some 90,000 members, 9% males, I think, about 6% African Americans, maybe 5% Hispanics. I think it's like 7% Asian, 1 or 2% Native Americans. We need, and with the population growing very diverse, and the whole issue of health disparities that impacts on those diverse groups, I think it's important that we have more people of color who go into the field of nutrition. So for me, I wanted to have that something out there that if there were students who came along and decided they wanted to be in the field of nutrition and they needed a little help, there would be something there that could help them and give them a boost, help them along.
What advice would you give to students today?
That even though they may have to take a whole lot of courses that at the time seem so far-fetched from what it is you think you want to do, you never know when you're going to use those skills and have to pull that knowledge out of that computer in your head that you learned here. And that if you apply yourself and just know that the hard work will pay off, they have to stick to it, they have to give it their best, and just never give up. Just hang in there and do the very best. And no matter what they do, that's what I was taught. Whatever it is, whatever job you have to do, you have to give it your all and do your best. And that's what I tell my children. I've told my children that, I tell my grandchildren. Give it your all, and you'll reap the benefits in return. You may not see it right away, but it will come back.
Is there anything else you'd like to add that I haven't asked you today that you would like to talk about or mention?
No, not really. It's just that it's just nice to be back and see all of the stuff that's going on, and all of the excitement among all of the students, and see old friends, and just be a part of something big. I think it makes it all worthwhile.
Well, I do appreciate you taking time out to meet with us today. We hope you enjoy the rest of your homecoming, and look forward to having you come back for many, many more homecomings to come.
All right. Well, thank you for asking.
Thank you.